The story begins with Nick Dunne, a man in his 40s, seemingly detached from his life. He's been married to his beautiful wife Amy for 5 years, and today marks their 5th wedding anniversary. However, unlike most husbands, Nick appears distant and indifferent. He hasn't bought her a gift or made any special plans. Instead, he chooses to go to a local bar for a drink. At the bar, he is greeted by his twin sister, Margot, who tends the place. Margot immediately senses that something is weighing heavily on Nick. His face carries a certain weariness, one that has become more familiar over time. Without needing to say much, it is clear that his thoughts are consumed by his wife, Amy. It is as if her name alone holds the power to explain his current state. As Nick reflects on her, the story shifts back in time. In a flashback, we see the night when Nick and Amy first meet. It is in New York City, at a book launch event organized by Amy, a successful children's author. At the time, Nick was a writer for a small men's magazine, attending the event almost by chance. Their meeting is coincidental, but they quickly bond over their love for literature. Despite Nick's easy charm, Amy remains cautious, playfully questioning his sincerity. Her teasing hints at skepticism, but Nick's sharp wit and confidence keep the conversation light and engaging. As the night progresses, they wander the city streets together, immersed in each other's company. Nick, not missing an opportunity, leans in and kisses her under the glow of the city lights. Their chemistry is undeniable, and the night ends with passion. Returning to the present, the spark that once defines Nick and Amy's relationship feels distant and almost forgotten. As Nick sits with his sister, the memories of what they once had clash with the reality of what remains. Their relationship, once filled with excitement and romance, now feels strained and complicated. The story continues as Nick, still at the bar with Margot, receives a call from his neighbor, mentioning that his cat is outside the house. Nick quickly leaves and heads home. Upon arriving, he notices something strange. The front door is slightly ajar. Nick calls out for Amy, but there's no answer. Entering the house, Nick walks through the silent rooms until he stumbles upon a disturbing sight. A glass table in the living room has been shattered, shards scattered across the floor. Unable to spot Amy, Nick immediately calls for help. Within minutes, Detective Rhonda and her partner James arrive at the scene. Rhonda begins examining the house. As she moves from room to room, she quickly spots small droplets of blood in the kitchen, out of place and alarming. It's enough to raise immediate suspicions. As they continue their inspection, Rhonda pauses in Amy's personal office, taking note of her book collection. It becomes apparent that Amy isn't just any missing person. She's a well-known children's author. Realizing the potential media attention this case could attract, Rhonda treats it with the urgency and sensitivity of a high-profile disappearance. At the police station, Nick is subjected to questioning. Rhonda asks about Amy's routines, her friends, and her preferences. Surprisingly, Nick struggles to answer. He doesn't know Amy's blood type, her favorite food, or much about her daily life. His vague responses raise Rhonda's suspicions even further. After questioning, Nick tries to lighten the mood by joking about feeling like he's on an episode of Law and Order, but the humor doesn't land. Rhonda quietly notes his behavior. It's the first red flag in her mind. The scene shifts into another flashback. It's the couple's first wedding anniversary, a time when their relationship seemed perfect. Nick and Amy celebrated with expensive gifts and public displays of affection, a period filled with passion and excitement. But as we now know, things begin to unravel from this point forward. Returning to the present, Rhonda continues her investigation at the Dunne residence. A pregnant woman named Noelle arrives unexpectedly, introducing herself as Amy's best friend and claiming that they have been close for over a year. This catches Rhonda's attention. After all, Nick had earlier mentioned that Amy didn't have any friends. Before questioning Noelle further, Rhonda refocuses on the house itself. The team uncovers evidence that the kitchen floor had been cleaned recently, likely to hide blood stains. This discovery suggests that something violent may have taken place. Adding to the mystery, Rhonda learns that the house, along with Nick's bar, is registered entirely in Amy's name. While searching the house, she also uncovers an envelope labeled Clue 1, hinting at something more beneath the surface. The next day, Margot and Nick head to the police station, where they meet Amy's parents. Together, they prepare for the scheduled press conference. Since Amy is a well-known writer, hundreds of reporters attend, and the event is broadcast live on television. When it's Nick's turn to speak, he reluctantly says a few sentences, but what stands out is his awkward smile as the cameras flash, capturing the moment. After the conference, in a private conversation with Detective Rhonda, Amy's parents reveal that Amy once had an affair with Desi Collins, a wealthy ex-lover, further complicating the situation. They explain that Desi had become possessive during their relationship, which led Amy to file a restraining order against him. As they leave, Rhonda pulls Nick aside and shows him an envelope labeled Clue 1, part of Amy's anniversary treasure hunt. Nick decodes it, which leads him to his office, where he finds Clue 2. While searching the office, Rhonda discovers a pair of red underwear hidden in a drawer. When she questions Nick about it, he lies, claiming he has no idea how it got there or what the clue means. Later, Nick goes to his father's abandoned house, knowing Clue 3 is hidden there. He accidentally sets off the security alarm by misenterring the code and unsuccessfully tries calling his father for help. Amid the noise, he spots Clue 3 and quickly pockets it. Just then, Detective Rhonda shows up, having followed him, which irritates him even more. She asks why he's there and if he came because of Clue 3, clearly suspicious of his motives. Nick dodges her question, saying he was just looking for some peace at the house, and quickly leaves, clearly frustrated. After arriving home, Nick finally takes out the clue and reads it carefully, trying to piece together what it means. In a flashback, we see Nick and Amy struggling after their move to Missouri to care for Nick's terminally ill mother. Nick is unemployed, spending recklessly on video games, while Amy, frustrated, borrows money from her parents. Their conversations often escalate into arguments, and Amy records these struggles in her diary, whether true or not. Back in the present, 2 days have passed since Amy's disappearance. Her parents organize a public search event to rally volunteers. Nick attends, but his detached behavior stands out. At one point, a woman asks to take a selfie with him, and Nick obliges, smiling for the camera. Almost immediately, he regrets it and asks her to delete the photo, but she refuses, leaving Nick frustrated and uneasy. That night, Nick seeks refuge at Margot's house, hoping to avoid the relentless paparazzi. The next morning, Margot sees news reports showing Nick's smiling selfies, with commentators questioning his apparent lack of grief. Concerned, Margot confronts her brother, asking if something is wrong. Nick, drained and frustrated, insists he's just trying to cope with the nightmare his life has become. Margot softens, apologizes, and they make peace. Later that night, Andy, one of Nick's college students and his secret girlfriend, unexpectedly arrives at Margot's house. She embraces Nick, voicing her frustration about him still being tied to Amy and hinting that she wants him to leave Amy for her. They share a heated moment, and Nick, feeling cornered by his situation, doesn't push her away. They spend the night together, but in the morning, Margot walks in and catches them. Shocked and furious, she demands to know why Nick kept this from her. Nick explains that his relationship with Amy fell apart long ago, and that he found solace with Andy. Margot warns him that this secret could ruin him if it comes to light. Another flashback from Amy's diary reveals her desire to have a child, hoping it would heal their marriage. As a world-famous writer, whether this is entirely true or not, Amy describes the pressure she felt. However, Nick was against the idea of having a child. During one heated argument, Nick pushed her to the ground, hurting her. Though he apologized, Amy began to fear him and started considering divorce. At the office, Rhonda's partner, James, grows increasingly convinced that Nick is hiding something and doesn't believe in his innocence. Soon after, Rhonda receives a forensics report confirming that the blood found at the house belongs to Amy, escalating the case to a more serious level. That evening, Nick prepares for another event to ask for help finding his missing wife. The crowd is large, supportive, and eager for any news. As Nick begins his speech, appealing for help in finding his wife and expressing his innocence, the mood suddenly shifts when Noelle, a woman claiming to be Amy's best friend, interrupts. She yells out, accusing Nick of hiding something, then drops a bombshell. Amy was 6 weeks pregnant at the time of her disappearance. The crowd falls silent, and shock ripples through those present. Margot, Andy, and even Amy's parents are stunned. Nick, overwhelmed and confused, tries to respond but stumbles. The crowd also turns against Nick, but fortunately, he is escorted away by the police. Later that night at Nick's home, Detective Rhonda and her partner James confront him with more troubling evidence. Rhonda shows Nick photographs proving that Amy and Noelle were friends despite his earlier claims. When asked about Amy's pregnancy, Nick angrily insists Noelle is lying. Then, Rhonda reveals that the blood found in the kitchen belongs to Amy, suggesting something violent happened. She also presents a list of expensive purchases made with Amy's credit cards, which Nick denies making. When Rhonda questions him about increasing Amy's life insurance to $1.2 million, Nick snaps, angrily saying he signed those papers because Amy told him to. Still suspicious, Rhonda suggests they only need the body to confirm Amy's death and arrest him. As Rhonda leaves, Nick, distressed and exhausted, tries to wrap his mind around the pregnancy guilty revelation. Margot approaches him, pressing him about the claim. To Margot's surprise, Nick reveals that Amy never wanted to have children. He is just as shocked by the news as everyone else, as Amy had always been clear about not wanting a baby. After Margot leaves, Nick focuses on solving clue 3 and follows it to Margot's woodshed, where he finds the gifts Amy bought, all under his name. In the middle, a neatly wrapped gift stands out, making the setup feel deliberate. It hits him hard as he realizes these items are neatly arranged to make him look guilty. At the same time, Rhonda and her partner head to Nick's father's house to search for more clues. While they don't find a body, they make a startling discovery: Amy's half-burnt diary in the furnace. Following this, the story flashes back to the day of Amy's disappearance. It's revealed that Amy has been the mastermind behind everything. She meticulously planned her own disappearance to frame Nick. In Amy's eyes, Nick had slowly destroyed her, lying, cheating, and depleting her pride and money. Her plan was detailed in every step. Amy secretly befriended Noelle, the dumbest neighbor she could find, knowing she was pregnant. She cleverly stole Noelle's urine sample to fake her own pregnancy. To make sure she had a way to escape, Amy bought a cheap car with cash. She then manipulated Noelle into believing that Nick was abusive, planting seeds of suspicion in her mind. Amy then staged the crime scene, drawing her own blood and splattering it across the kitchen, purposely leaving it half-cleaned for the police to find. She wrote fabricated entries in her diary, casting herself as a victim in a violent, crumbling marriage. Amy designed everything to make Nick look guilty, strategically leaving the diary for the police to find, making it seem like she feared for her life. She also planted clues in the treasure hunt that subtly pointed toward Nick's guilt. As Amy drives away, she reflects on the night she began to plan this elaborate scheme, the night she discovered Nick's affair with Andy. Meanwhile, as Nick opens the gift, Margot reads Amy's note, revealing that Amy knew about his affair. The message hints at framing him, making them realize the extent of her plan. Convinced that Amy is setting him up but lacking solid proof, he turns to Tanner Bolt, one of the smartest lawyers in the country. Tanner, intrigued by the case, agrees to take it on. He advises Nick that to win public support, they need to discredit Amy's America's sweetheart image. He suggests finding someone from her past who has been screwed by her. Nick knows exactly who to talk to: Tommy, Amy's ex-boyfriend. Tommy had been framed by Amy for sexual assault, which ruined his life. When Nick meets him, Tommy reveals that he always suspected Amy was lying and confirms that she manipulated him. Next, Tanner and Nick turn their attention to Desi Collings, a wealthy ex-lover of Amy's who still writes her letters. Nick visits Desi at his mansion, hoping to get information that could help his case, but Desi refuses to speak ill of Amy, still deeply in love with her. Meanwhile, Detective Rhonda digs deeper and finds Amy's half-burned diary in the furnace at Nick's father's house, raising more suspicions. The police seal the property as an active crime scene. At the same time, Tanner advises Nick to prepare for a press conference, urging him to address the affair openly to regain public sympathy and steer the story in his favor. Amy, having changed her appearance to avoid recognition, now lives under a new identity in a quiet neighborhood. She tries to keep a low profile, but remains vigilant. From her new place, she watches the news closely, monitoring the developments in her plan. Growing anxious about what might come next, Amy notices a report on Nick's investigation and decides to call the police anonymously, claiming she saw strange activity near the woodshed on Margot's property. One day, while playing mini-golf with her neighbors Greta and Jeff, Amy accidentally drops a wad of cash. Already suspicious, they quickly sense she's hiding something. The next day, they confront and rob her, accusing her of running from the police with a fake identity. But they have no idea she's actually the Gone Girl from the big crime story all over the news. Desperate and with nowhere else to turn, Amy decides to reach out to Desi, meeting him in a casino. She manipulates him by claiming that Nick tried to kill her and that she had to escape secretly to survive. Desi, eager to win her back, believes her story and takes her to his secluded lake house, fully equipped with surveillance cameras. But once there, Amy starts to feel trapped by Desi's obsession, realizing he expects her to be his wife. Back in Nick's world, Tanner coaches him on handling the live interview. Nick admits he wasn't the best husband and acknowledges the affair, but insists he always tried his best for Amy. He emphasizes that despite everything, he didn't kill her and believes she's still alive. When Nick goes live, he delivers a heartfelt confession, expressing regret for his mistakes while maintaining his innocence. His sincerity starts to sway public opinion, and as Amy watches from Desi's villa, she senses her plans slipping. With Nick gaining sympathy, Amy knows she needs to adjust her strategy before losing control. Following Amy's call, the police search Margot's woodshed and discover items bought under Nick's name, intensifying their suspicions. Nick and Margot are briefly taken into custody for questioning, but at the station, Tanner successfully argues that without a body, there isn't enough evidence to detain them. The police are forced to let them go. Meanwhile, Amy begins to think about returning to Nick, but she knows Desi won't let her go easily. Feeling trapped, Amy waits for the right moment. Before Desi leaves, she awkwardly flirts with him and bites his lip, making it bleed, setting up evidence to use against him. After he's gone, she goes to the bathroom, leaving rope marks on her wrists to make it appear as though she's been tied up. She also injures herself in private areas, making it look like she's been assaulted. Then, she positions herself in front of one of the security cameras and records herself screaming. Later that night, when Desi gets home, Amy calmly puts her plan into action. She sets the scene, knowing it will make him relax. As they're together, Amy seizes the moment to execute her plan, swiftly ending Desi's life. The next morning, everything changes. Amy suddenly arrives at Nick's house covered in Desi's blood. This shocks everyone, including the press and the public, and the case takes a dramatic turn. Nick, once seen as America's most hated man, is now believed to be innocent. At the hospital, doctors examine Amy and conclude that she has been mistreated, aligning with her story. Detective Rhonda and FBI agents question her, and Amy spins a dramatic tale of how Desi, her former stalker, kidnapped her and held her hostage. She claims he tied her up and mistreated her throughout the week she was missing. To strengthen her story, Amy urges them to check the security camera footage as proof. When Rhonda brings up her diary, Amy dodges the question with a quick lie, diverting their focus. Rhonda remains suspicious, but with no concrete evidence against Amy, she is forced to let it go. Amy's plan works perfectly, and the public sees her as a brave survivor. It's clear Amy is back in the spotlight as America's sweetheart. Back at home, Nick, desperate for answers, confronts her, but Amy quickly takes control. To make sure he's not recording, she demands Nick strip down. In the shower, Nick reveals his belief that she's clearly a murderer to him. Amy, unfazed, insists she did everything out of love to get back to him, but when Nick expresses his desire to leave, she coldly threatens to ruin his life if he dares to try, leaving him feeling more trapped than ever. 5 days after Amy's return, Nick, with Margot, Rhonda, and Tanner's support, tries to find a way to expose her, but Rhonda feels helpless as the federal authorities have closed the case, leaving Nick still entangled in Amy's web. As Nick struggles with the closed case and Amy's lies, Amy drops a bombshell. She reveals she's pregnant, using the sample Nick left at a fertility clinic without his consent. Shocked and angry, Nick insists he never touched her, but Amy, now firmly in control, calmly warns him that if he leaves, she'll make sure their child grows up hating him. In the end, Nick resigns himself to staying with Amy. He knows she's dangerous, but for the sake of his reputation and the child, he can't leave. The story ends as Nick lies awake at night, locking the bedroom door, fully aware that he's trapped in a life with someone he no longer trusts. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications for more videos like this. We've got a lot of great content coming your way. Take care and see you again.